According to Mimi Silber, the author of the book Sexual Assault of Prostitutes, over 68% of prostitutes report having been raped. Yet only 4% of these women report these crimes to the police. Why don't they report their crimes? Because as one prostitute stated in the book Sex Work, it's because the police told her it wasn't possible for a prostitute to be raped. This is what happens when you criminalize prostitution. These women who are simply trying to make a living become non-persons in the eyes of the law. For this reason, all states in the U.S. that have laws criminalizing prostitution must rescind them immediately. Now, there are three major problems with criminalizing prostitution. It infringes upon individual rights, it endangers the women who work in the industry, and it costs too much to taxpayers. Now, it infringes upon individual rights because each person is the owner of their own body and whatever labor or service they wish to provide with that body. Now, a massage therapist is paid to massage or caress her clients' bodies. Yet if government-specified body parts involved, suddenly what she does is a crime. The hypocrisy of these laws is even more evident if we look at workers in the pornography industry. These are people who are paid to have sex. Yet what they do is not illegal, but what a prostitute does is illegal? This makes no sense. A consenting adult prostitute should be allowed to decide what service she wishes to provide with her own body, because it's just that, her own body. Not only do these laws infringe upon the rights of these women, they also endanger them. When you turn citizens into criminals, they lack the basic police protection that most of us take for granted. The average prostitute is 40 times more likely to be murdered than the average woman. 40 times. Serial killers have been known to prey upon prostitutes because they know they're much less likely to be caught if they target prostitutes. Police simply do not thoroughly investigate the disappearance of a prostitute. In this world of violence, these prostitutes often seek the protection of a pimp to help them, since the police won't. However, these pimps that are being paid to protect them often abuse the women violently themselves. Thus, criminalizing prostitution only leads to a never-ending cycle of violence towards these women. Finally, there's a great deal of cost associated with enforcing these laws. Julie Pearl, in an article in the Hastings Law Journal, notes that the average city spends $7.5 million a year enforcing prostitution laws. New York City alone spends $23 million a year. However, the average prostitute spends less than a week in jail for each arrest. This means that after a few days, she's back out on the street doing the exact same thing. This does nothing to stop prostitution and only waste the taxpayers' money. Now, there have been two proposed solutions to this problem: legalization or decriminalization. Decriminalization, which I'm arguing for, is simply the removal of all laws that criminalize prostitution. Legalization, on the other hand, is the government control and regulation of the prostitution industry. The problem with legalization, though, is that the individual women do not control their hours, their clients, or their conditions. These are all prescribed by a government bureaucracy. Furthermore, any woman who wishes to work as a legal prostitute must register as a prostitute with the state. This is a huge barrier for any woman who seeks to leave the profession later in life for another job, because it will permanently be on her record that she once registered as a prostitute. Finally, these women also are forced by the state to have regular medical checkups to make sure they're healthy enough for sex. While this may sound like a good thing, it is once again an infringement upon these women's rights to decide what's best for their own body. Decriminalization, on the other hand, allows the individual women to decide their own hours, their own conditions, and their own clients. It also provides an easier exit from the industry, since they don't have to fear either registering or being arrested, both of which would be on their record forever. Finally, it allows for individual control over their own health. And for those who are worried about this issue, with decriminalization, the men who are seeking the services of a prostitute would be allowed to shop around without fear of being arrested. Obviously, health would be a major factor in this, so any woman who wanted to make money would have to be able to prove that she was healthy enough for sex. Now, there are some that would argue that there's major problems with decriminalization. Some people argue that these women are always exploited, and they can never consent to being prostitutes because they're forced into it because of a tough economic situation. Yet many people are forced into jobs they don't want because of tough economic situations, and we don't say that they don't have any choices or they're not free. Furthermore, if we're concerned about these women being exploited, then why do we subject them to a system that leads to their arrest and for violence towards them? Now, there are some cases where women are forced to be prostitutes against their will, and this is known as sex trafficking. This is indeed a crime, and these people should be punished for what they're doing to these women. However, with the police not being forced to monitor all the prostitution, they can focus their time and energy on stopping these real criminals. Imagine instead of New York City spending $23 million stopping all prostitution, they can spend this $23 million stopping these real criminals. Other people would argue that Prostitution is an inherently immoral act, and if our society decriminalizes it, then we're sanctioning it. However, we also allow such supposedly immoral acts as the drinking of alcohol or gambling because we recognize in this country an individual's right to choose what's best for themselves. Even if the choice they make is an immoral one to some people, we recognize the right for that individual to make the choice for what's best for themselves. Finally, some people are worried about a plague of STDs spreading over the land if prostitution were decriminalized. However, the CDC notes that only 3 to 5% of STDs transmitted is due to sex from prostitution. We should be much more concerned with teenage sex, which accounts for 30 to 35% of all STDs that are transmitted. Now, prostitution has been around since the beginning of human history, and will probably be here as long as men and women are here. Now, as much as we've tried, we can't stop natural human desire. So instead of subjecting these women to prosecution and persecution, we should allow them to try and make a living free from arrest and free from violence. We should decriminalize prostitution. Thank you.